My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 56 years old. This morning, when I walked into the conference room on the 14th floor of Straighten and More, the financial consulting firm where I'd worked for over 2 decades, I thought I was there to discuss the Q2 client strategy. I didn't expect it to be the meeting that would end my career there. Sitting across from me was Jacob Lindley, the new CEO who had joined the firm just 7 months ago. He sat with a calm, detached demeanor. Next to him was an HR representative and a yellow envelope already placed on the glass table. No one offered me a seat. "We've decided to restructure the client services department," Jacob began, his voice smooth and rehearsed. "Today will be your final day at Straighten and More." No warning, no room for negotiation. I swallowed hard, gripping my folder tightly. "I've been here for 25 years, Jacob," I said, trying to keep my composure. "Do you think Mr. Mitchell knows about this?" I was referring to the company's founder, the man who once called me the backbone of client services. "All shareholders were consulted," Jacob replied, dodging the question like I'd asked about the weather. "This decision doesn't reflect your performance. It's simply about adapting to the new market." I glanced at the envelope. Severance pay, 2 months' salary, health insurance coverage through the end of the quarter. A pitiful end to 25 years, during which I'd given up family vacations to retain clients. Jacob gave a slight nod, signaling the HR woman. "The paperwork is ready. Security will assist you with clearing out your personal items." I was the one who had written that very exit protocol 11 years ago. Now I was being escorted out like a security threat. My mind was spinning as I stepped out of that room, but I kept my posture straight. I refused to show a single second of weakness. My desk still had the photo of me with the CEO of Brayton Tech during the signing of a $6 million deal. I packed that photo, along with a handwritten thank you note from the board of Morris Healthcare, our largest client, for 6 years, whom I had personally advised since the days they were struggling with negative cash flow. Less than 30 minutes later, I was out of the building, carrying a cardboard box and a hollow "best of luck" from HR. My phone buzzed just as I stepped into the parking garage. A text from Monica Drew, CEO of Morris Healthcare. "Emily, just heard the news. What's going on? Call me ASAP." I hadn't even had a chance to respond when I spotted Jacob on a call through the 14th floor window, probably already scrambling to reassure the clients I had built over decades. What a joke. We weren't numbers to be reassigned via email. I'd called them by name, tracked every stage of their company's growth. I understood their goals better than any spreadsheet ever could, and now I was being discarded simply because I no longer fit into a cost efficiency model. I sat in my car a little longer, staring up at the building where I'd spent most of my adult life. Part of me wanted to cry. Another part felt completely numb, as if I had always known this would happen, just not that they would do it this ruthlessly. That evening, I returned to my 10th floor apartment in Midtown Manhattan, where you could just make out the dim glow above Bryant Park from the balcony. I set the box down, slipped off my shoes, poured a glass of white wine, and collapsed into the armchair. The emptiness I felt wasn't about losing my job. It was being reduced to a redundant number by the very company I had helped build back when no one believed it had a future. I didn't post on social media, didn't call colleagues, no ranting, no self-pity. Some wounds don't need words to ache deep in the bone. Around 9 p.m., my phone rang. It was Monica Drew. "Emily?" Oh my God, what happened? "I just heard from the law firm. Are you really no longer at Straighten and More?" I leaned my head back against the chair. "They're calling it a restructure." "What kind of joke is that?" Monica snapped. "You're the only reason I kept renewing our contract with them." I didn't answer right away. I didn't want this to turn into a blame game or a moment of ego soothing. But Monica went on, needing no invitation. "Emily, I want to see you. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., my office on 45th Street. Not about the contract. I just want to hear it from you." Before I could hang up, another message popped up. "Heard from Monica. Hope you're okay. Amanda and I would love to take you to lunch. Leo Tran, CFO, Martellian Group." Then another. "If you're really gone, I need to reevaluate our entire engagement plan with Straighten. Call me when you can." WX for Adventures. Within an hour, I had 8 messages from various CEOs and executives, every single one of them clients I'd personally managed over the past decade. What surprised me wasn't the concern, it was the speed and synchronicity. It felt like news of my departure had triggered a domino effect, something no one could contain, as if someone had silently flipped a switch. The next morning, I arrived at Monica's office. She was waiting, tapping her nails on a coffee cup and flipping through a printed email from Straighten. It announced my replacement, a young and dynamic specialist. "I'm not working with that kid," Monica said, looking at me like I had the final say. "You know what makes the difference, Emily? Consistency. Being able to call you anytime without going through 3 assistants. You've known this company since we couldn't even afford consultants." I said nothing. Monica's voice softened, her eyes now sharp rather than angry. "I know at least 5 other firms who are just as unsettled as I am. If you're not at Straighten anymore, they'll start thinking about following you. You don't even need to do anything, just show up." I left her office with a hot coffee in hand and a thought forming in the back of my mind. Not revenge, but a possibility. What if I wasn't just the one who got pushed out, but the one the whole market had been waiting for? Back home, I opened my laptop. The next email came from Evelyn Moss, a headhunter I'd met at a Denver conference last year. "Heard about Straighten. There are a few roles I think you'd find interesting. Dinner?" I started typing a reply, then deleted it. I wasn't ready to make a decision. But one thing had become crystal clear. Those of us once labeled legacy assets in outdated systems, people like me, are sometimes the very heartbeat a company can't afford to lose. When someone snuffs out that light, all that's left is darkness. Not everyone sees it right away, but those who live by that light, they're always the first to notice when it's gone. And now they were following it to me. 3 days after meeting with Monica, I was sitting in front of my laptop, updating my LinkedIn profile when the landline rang. Hardly anyone uses landlines these days, so I hesitated a few seconds before picking up. "Emily, it's me," came a familiar, slightly raspy voice with a hint of concern. "It's Benjamin Moore." I straightened in my chair. Benjamin Megafradis had retired over 2 years ago, but still held an advisory position. "I just got back from Zurich. My assistant told me what happened. What's going on at the office?" I paused, choosing my words carefully. "I was let go, Ben. Jacob called it restructuring." "I didn't approve that," he replied, clearly upset. "They did this while I was in Europe? Jacob doesn't have the authority to make that decision without reporting to me or the strategic board." I narrowed my eyes. "You're the founder, Ben. Could they really sidestep you unless you let it happen?" A heavy sigh came through the line. "Emily, I don't have the same level of control anymore. They brought in outside capital from Northwave. Over the past few months, Jacob's been rallying the younger partners, trying to shift the firm into a financially optimized model instead of one built on long-term relationships. I've pushed back, but not being in New York at the right time, that was my mistake." I leaned back in my chair. Being pushed out was painful, but realizing that the person who once called me his right hand was now powerless, that cut deeper. "Jacob made it clear I don't fit the new direction." Ben hesitated. "I want to make this right, Emily. I called the board chair this morning. They're open to renegotiation. I proposed a new title for you, Vice President of Client Strategy. You'd report directly to me. Jacob won't have any say." I tightened my grip on my coffee mug. I'd always imagined that if I ever left the company, it would be on my own terms, leaving behind applause and a heartfelt farewell, not being tossed out like a disposable file. "You don't have to decide right now," Ben added, "but we need you back. Clients are starting to ask questions." I stared out the window. Manhattan traffic flowed as usual. No one stopped because one director had lost her job. "I appreciate the offer, Ben, but if you truly believed I carried the core value of the firm, how did you let it get this far?" There was silence on the other end. Then, slowly, I was wrong to believe they'd honor their word. That loyalty and competence would protect you. I forgot this market doesn't reward naivety. I nodded to myself. That was the only kind of admission I needed. I haven't made a decision yet, Ben. But I'm no longer the Emily from 5 years ago, the one who treated the company like family and sacrificed everything out of loyalty. I understand. If you choose not to return, I won't hold it against you, but if you do, I promise your voice won't be ignored again. After hanging up, I sat there for a long time, doing nothing. Part of me wanted to accept. Part of me stayed guarded, wary of going back to a place that had drained me and discarded me like I never mattered. I opened my email, a new message from Leon Blake, CEO of Harbor Point Ventures. Heard the news, can't believe it. If you're still considering your next move, let's do lunch. I think we could build something meaningful. I placed my fingers on the keyboard, then paused. The question was no longer, should I go back? It was, why should I? 3 days after Ben Moore's call, I met Leon Blake, CEO of Harbor Point Ventures, at Les Ciel, a restaurant tucked into the Upper West Side. Leon, a calm man in his early 40s, was known in the industry for never making decisions on a first meeting. But right after the appetizer, he broke his own rule. "Emily, I won't beat around the bush," Leon said, setting his glass of water down. "We want you as our director of client strategy. Starting salary $420,000 a year, equity included. And if you hit 5 major client transitions in 6 months, you'll have a seat on the executive board." They didn't freeze because of the number. I'd handled deals worth 10 times that, but because of how fast and direct the offer came. "Thank you, Leon, but I'm still considering my next steps," I replied, keeping my tone calm. "I need to know if the next place I land is truly the right fit, not just a rebound from the fall at Straighten." Leon nodded without offense. "Understood. But if you're looking for a platform to rebuild, this is it." After leaving the restaurant, I checked my phone and saw 2 more meeting requests from other firms. Everest Analytics, a growing data conglomerate expanding into consulting services, and Callahan Bridges, a law firm upgrading its corporate client care division. The next day, I met with Callahan at their Midtown office. They offered me the title Head of Client Transition, with a bonus package tied to the number of clients I could pull from competitors. I listened, took notes, smiled politely, but inside I felt nothing. It wasn't until I met with Sable and Reed, a mid-sized consulting firm in Brooklyn, that something shifted. Something felt familiar. "We've always been outsiders, Emily," said Claire Sable, the firm's founder, during a modest lunch in a conference room. "We're not trying to build an empire. We want to stay boutique, hands-on, nimble, and not turning clients into data points on a dashboard." I looked around the room. Minimalist furniture, nothing flashy, but everything intentional. No glass partitions or power posturing, just quiet respect in the way staff spoke to one another. "I don't want you to run an existing machine," Claire added. "I want you to help build something. You'd be joining as a partner. We'll form a new division centered on your philosophy. If you accept, the initial equity package is 6%. I stayed silent for a moment. This wasn't an interview. It was an invitation to co-create, not to fill a vacancy. "I'll need time to think," I said, but my eyes didn't leave the small plaque on the wall. Sable and Reed, guided by people, not numbers. On the way home, my car stopped at a red light on 53rd and Lexington. I glanced up at the tall building where Straighten and Moore still sat. The glass facade shimmered in the sun like always. Nothing had changed there. But I had. That evening, I sat alone in my kitchen, opened my laptop, and wrote out a list. Criteria for re-entering the game. Not to find a job, but to build an ecosystem I believed in. The strategic autonomy. People-first culture, not just KPIs. No serving just to survive. And finally, only return where my voice would never be sidelined again. I closed the laptop just as my phone buzzed, a text from Monica Drew. "Just got an email from Straighten introducing your replacement." I replied with one sentence, "No thanks. Call me when you're ready." I smiled. Some negotiations don't require words. You just have to stand up, and those who know your value will come find you. 3 days after my final meeting with Sable and Reed, I was sitting in a quiet cafe on Spring Street, sipping espresso and reviewing a draft contract, when my phone rang. It was Monica Drew. "Emily, you need to see this," her voice sharp as a blade. "I just got a process update from Stratton and Moore. They're routing all financial consulting requests through a digital assistant. No more direct account managers. Can you believe that?" I didn't say anything. Monica barreled on before I could respond. "I emailed the entire board. We're pulling the contract. All of it. I'm not working with a chatbot." Less than an hour later, 2 more texts came in, one from Samir Patel. "We're reviewing the agreement. I need a good lawyer to handle the transfer from Stratton." And another from Evelyn Moss. "Quick update, 4 of Stratton's top-tier clients just reached out asking about you. I'm working on connecting the dots." By that afternoon, my phone barely stopped ringing. Some calls came from California, others from Florida, even from Wexford Ventures' Asia office. They all asked the same thing. "Is it true you left Stratton? And if so, what's next?" I hadn't reached out to anyone, but the news spread faster than I expected. The next morning, I woke up to a headline on Business Ledger. "Shockwaves at Stratton and Moore. Key clients pull contracts following Emily Carter's departure." The article listed companies considering switching strategic partners, including at least 8 clients I'd directly managed. Near the end was a biting commentary. The real question: who truly owns the client's trust, the firm or the person behind the desk? I knew Jacob Lindley was panicking. A text from my former assistant Caroline confirmed it. "It's chaos here. Jacob's calling emergency meetings nonstop, blaming strategic missteps. Legal says we could lose up to 60% of next quarter's revenue." I didn't feel smug or bitter, but I saw it clearly. When they cut me out of the system, they didn't realize the thing severed wasn't just a contract. It was the invisible thread that tied people to people. A spreadsheet can't replace 25 years of trust, late-night calls, or personalized reports sent on time, even during Christmas break. By the end of the week, I received an email from an investigative reporter at the New York Financial Review. The subject line: "Stratton & Moore faces credibility crisis. Internal sources say execs want CEO Jacob Lindley removed." Attached was a photo of a signed petition, over 20 signatures, from executives demanding the board remove top leadership, citing failure to preserve critical client relationships. I stared at the screen, unmoving. Deep down, I knew. I didn't need to retaliate. They were already facing the consequences of their own choices. On Monday morning, an unfamiliar number called. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to pick up. "Emily, it's Benjamin Moore, Stratton's founder." His voice frail. "I'm sure you've seen what's happening." "I read it," I replied. "I need to see you, urgently. Not at the office. We need to talk, just the 2 of us, like people who once believed in something." I sat silently for a moment, not out of hesitation, but because I'd been expecting this call. I said yes. We met in a private conference room at the Peninsula Hotel on Tuesday morning. Benjamin Moore looked at least 10 years older than the last time I'd seen him at Stratton and Moore's 20th anniversary celebration. His eyes were sunken, his shirt no longer perfectly pressed, and the familiar Patek Philippe watch he once wore like a badge of power now rested quietly in his pocket, unseen. He stood when I walked in, extending his hand like he was trying to grasp something long lost. "Thank you for coming, Emily. I know I don't have many privileges left to demand anything, but I still want to try to make things right." I sat down. No handshake, no smile. "I'm here to listen. That doesn't mean I'm coming back." Benjamin nodded, then slid a thick envelope toward me, sealed with an internal stamp. I opened it, flipping through. An offer for senior partnership, equity equal to current founding partners, and documentation confirming a direct reporting line to the board, bypassing Jacob Lindley entirely. "They've agreed to remove Jacob from all strategic meetings involving clients," Benjamin said quickly, as if afraid I'd walk out mid-sentence. "And if you accept, You'll have veto power over any restructuring decisions for the next 6 quarters. I stared at the clause, veto power, like it was a rogue note in a chaotic symphony. If all of this is true, then why the private meeting? I asked. You could have just emailed it. Benjamin let out a long sigh and leaned back. Because they're not doing this to make things right with you. They're doing it out of fear. I'm here because I know you're the last remaining piece of this firm's soul. I held his gaze, unflinching. They called me legacy burden 2 weeks ago, Ben. Now they call you their last hope, he replied. We talked for another 30 minutes, mostly about internal chaos. Over 40% of high-value clients had officially requested to transfer or cancel their contracts. The investment board from Northwave Capital was threatening to pull funding if the company wasn't stabilized within 45 days. I need something from you, Emily, Benjamin said earnestly. At the very least, your presence. There's an all-hands meeting this Friday. I want you to attend. No commitment. Just walking into that room will mean more than 100 crisis emails. I didn't answer right away, but when I stood up, I didn't shut him down. And to Benjamin Moore, that was already half a yes. That afternoon, I received an email from Sable and Reed reiterating their offer. This time with an increased equity stake, now over 8%. Claire had written a single line at the end of the message. We're not competing with anyone, but if you're looking for a place that values you, our door stays open. I read that line over and over, then set my phone down. Both choices came with weight, but only one gave me a real chance to uproot the culture that once pushed me to the curb. On Thursday night, I texted Benjamin. I'll be there, but not for an apology. I'm coming to look straight into the eyes of those who stayed silent while I was cast out. That's all. His reply came in under 2 minutes. That's more than enough, thank you. I didn't sleep that night. On the table were 2 contracts. One from the firm that once treated me as disposable, and another from the one willing to build a future alongside me from the ground up. The next morning, I walked into the Straighten & More building in a dark gray suit, briefcase in hand, eyes steady. The receptionist sprang to her feet, startled to see me. But I didn't stop. Floor 21. All hands meeting. The glass doors swung open. Dozens of faces turned. Jacob wasn't there. Benjamin was standing at the front, his smile tinged with relief the moment I entered. All partners were present. Even those who typically joined remotely had flown into New York within the past 48 hours. Sunlight reflected off the Stratton & Moore logo behind the podium, but no one paid attention to it. Every gaze fixed on me as I entered. Not rushed, not timid, but with the composure of someone walking into the very place that once discarded her like an unnamed shadow. Benjamin Moore stood first. Emily Carter, he said, voice slightly trembling. It is my honor to announce that, starting next week, Emily will officially return to Straighten & More as Senior Managing Partner and Head of Strategic Client Relations. A faint round of applause came from the right side of the room, but quickly faded into silence as I stepped forward. I scanned the room. Some faces showed relief, others, clearly aligned with Jacob, were frozen like statues. Sensing something unexpected, Benjamin glanced at me with a furrowed brow. I opened my presentation. There was no Straighten & More logo. Instead, the screen displayed the insignia of Linden & Gray, an investment firm under Harper & Rivington, a conglomerate known for leading major national acquisitions. Before anyone assumes I'm here to continue an old chapter, I began, let me clarify. I'm not returning to Stratton as an employee. A ripple of murmurs swept through the room. Last week, I accepted a partnership with Sable and Reed, a firm whose values and direction I deeply respect, and as of yesterday afternoon, Sable and Reed, backed by financial support from Linden and Gray, has completed the acquisition of 75% of Straighten & More's equity through Northwave Capital's voting rights. Someone at the back dropped a pen. Benjamin sat completely still. What does that mean? One partner asked hesitantly. I met their eyes. It means I'm not coming back to resume my old role. I'm here representing the new executive leadership. And per the agreement signed this morning, the entire current management team, including Jacob Lindley, is now under formal restructuring review. The rear doors opened. A silver-held woman in a dark gray suit, Linden and Gray's lead representative, entered with two colleagues. She gave me a nod, then handed a sealed document packet to Benjamin. This is the board's resolution, effective immediately. The room froze. Not a single voice. Jacob Lindley shot up from his chair, furious. What is this, Emily? You're destroying this company. I turned to him, eyes steady. I'm not destroying anything. I'm stepping into the wreckage you created. And this time, no one will be sent out the back door with a box and a look of pity. But you will. Benjamin tried to speak, but his voice had lost its command. He looked at me with a mix of regret and resignation. I never wanted this, Emily. You didn't want it, I said calmly, but you let it happen. Now I'm here to fix it. Not for myself, but for the people still holding on, believing this company's name can rise from the ashes. I stepped away from the podium. The room remained still, broken only by the soft rustle of paper as Linden and Gray's representative distributed formal memos. As I exited, Caroline, my former assistant, hurried after me, her face lit with a mix of awe and pride. You just did what no one's dared to do in the past 10 years. I smiled. I haven't done anything yet. Now the real work begins. 6 weeks after that all-hands meeting, the 21st floor of the former Straighten & Moore building had a new nameplate. Sable Franklin Group, the official name of the joint venture between Sable and Reed and what remained of Straighten. Beneath the sleek metal signage was a new motto, advising with trust, not just data. I sat in my new office overlooking bustling Madison Avenue, reviewing the final client integration plan for the transition phase. Nearly 92% of Straightn's original staff had been retained. Those who had been pushed into lifeless digital service roles were invited back to do what they did best, build and sustain relationships. No one was let go because of age or legacy cost. The new team wasn't flashy, but it was full of people who understood the value of truly listening. Gone were the 200-page, meaningless reports. In their place, one-on-one meetings, concise and clear presentations, focused on real solutions. And the clients? In the first quarter, post-merger, revenue rose by 23%. Clients who had walked away, like Morris Healthcare, Archer Capital, and Wexer Ventures, voluntarily returned. They didn't ask for discounts. They asked for one thing, that Emily and her team personally oversee their account. One Monday morning, I received an email from Evelyn Moss. The market is calling this the biggest consulting rebirth in a decade. You might want to start prepping for your keynote this fall. I smiled. I hadn't done this for recognition. I did it because I had watched a system collapse from believing too much in the word optimization and forgetting the one thing that truly keeps clients: human connection. As for Jacob Lindley, he left the company in silence. No farewell email, no LinkedIn post. Word later spread that he had been turned down by 3 major firms in the industry. Internal emails he once wrote, filled with phrases like legacy cost and aging talent burden, were now being used in MBA programs as case studies in failed strategic leadership. Benjamin Moore, however, chose a different path. He no longer held executive power, but agreed to serve as honorary advisor. We never returned to being close, but there was something else between us now. Quiet respect. At the final board meeting of the quarter, he stood up and said, "If it weren't for Emily, we wouldn't still be here. Let's not forget that." I didn't need praise. I only needed people to understand that no spreadsheet could replace 25 years of dedication. That evening, I stayed late in the office, reviewing a stack of newly signed contracts. Caroline walked in, carrying 2 glasses of wine. "You know what people are calling you now?" she asked, placing a glass on the desk. "Don't say Iron Lady. I don't like that one." "No," she grinned. "They're calling you the irreplaceable one. Because you didn't just bring the clients, you brought them back." I didn't say anything, just took a sip and looked out the window. Outside, Manhattan buzzed as always, but inside, I felt a peace I'd never known before. Not because I'd won, but because I had stayed true to the principle. Trust isn't built through speed, it's built through time, sincerity, and the willingness to stay when everyone else walks away. And this time, I wasn't removed from the game, I rewrote the rules. Emily's story proves that in today's business world where everything is measured by metrics and profit, true value still comes from people and trust. No spreadsheet can replace a relationship built over years through sincerity, listening, and understanding. When cast aside as a legacy cost, Emily didn't retaliate. She stood tall, stated that wasn't revenge, that was justice. What do you think about Emily's journey and how she reclaimed her worth? Share your thoughts below and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family, choices, and resilience in life.